Hello, hello. Welcome back to the L.A.M.E Book Club podcast. My name is Melissa.
And I'm Ellie.
And this is episode 12, part 2 of A Court of Silver Flames. And I am loving this series. This is my favorite book to talk about, so I'm excited to jump in today.
Mm-hmm.
But before we do that, well, go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't know if this is my favorite book to talk about. It was a really good one to read, but like out loud, there's so much spice that I turned bright red. So it was a Court of Mist and Fury for me.
Watch a video if you want to see Ellie squirm in her seat. Before we jump in, though, book news update. I know we posted a video about it earlier this week on our Instagram, but I want to talk with Ellie about it too. Fourth Wing, the rights for Fourth Wing were purchased by Amazon and Outlier Society Productions, which is Michael B. Jordan's production company.
I feel like Erin in The Office when she does the woo 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 like that.
You're excited?
Yes, Amazon's way better than Hulu. If this was
Amazon
going to be made
is
a show,
not way better than Hulu.
You're lying to my face right
now.
The
last two book adaptations that they've done have been trash. Lord of the Rings was
those?
not good.
Everybody says it was so good.
The people you were talking, Zeke is the biggest Lord of the Rings fan I've ever met, and he did not like it at all. Like real Lord of the Rings fans did not like it.
I'm just like sitting here just trusting everything that I've seen other people say. I personally have not watched Lord of the Rings.
Well, okay, so I can't. I watched it too. It was so boring. I guess to give Amazon a little bit of credit, the quote unquote rights that they purchased for that show was like a page out of one book, and so like they really had to build a lot of it on their own.
Did they do
however
Samurai Turned Pretty?
Yes, they did. That was the next book I was going to bring up.
And that was not
the
good.
Author was even involved in the writing of that one, and it still turned out that poorly. And with Fourth Wing, Rebecca Yarros isn't even on she has no writing capacity for the show. She's just an executive producer.
That's not good either. But hold on. Didn't Amazon also do Daisy Jones and the Six?
Yeah, and that also wasn't fantastic.
You lied. I liked it. Daisy Jones and the Six was fantastic. It wasn't super close to the book, but it was really good.
Well, that right there, that's my biggest thing is they don't ever stick to the book. They like take their own and make it, or they take their own creative liberties always. And with some things, the authors like do such a good job to begin with that they don't need to take their own creative liberty. Just stick to the book. It's good.
I know. Well, and I
guarantee you that's what they're going to do with this.
That's why Game of Thrones was so phenomenal, because
good.
It was dead on with the book. Until the end, they really didn't stray at all, which was awesome. It was the best show anyone's ever seen until Yellowstone.
I know. Well, so then when I heard that Outlier Society was going to be involved too, I was like, I don't know what movies they've done. So I looked up what movies they have done. And the number one movie was Creed. So I'm like, well, not fantasy.
It was Creed.
No. I don't hate it. I'm just saying, I'm like, well, this has nothing to do with Fourth Wing. Like any kind of.
Yes.
But I just looked at the repertoire and it's almost exclusively action, drama, and superhero movies. Like there's like one fantasy movie that's included and it hasn't even been finished yet. So we don't know what it's gonna like end up being like.
Ooh.
So that's
Creed
where I'm just like,
wasn't a movie that I was like, wow, I need to watch that again. That was
you know what? Okay. I need to go back and double check, but I'm pretty sure it was Creed 3, not even like the original. Michael B. Jordan is the star of almost every single movie that they've produced.
Is he going to be the star in Fourth Wing as well?
I mean, at this rate,
that's a Lin-Manuel move if I've ever heard one. To write the whole thing and be like, who's going to star? I know.
I guess I will.
Me.
You know who would be really, really great for this role? He's standing right in front of you.
Take one guess.
I'll give you one shot.
I don't know. Hope they don't ruin it. I love Fourth Wing so far.
Here's what and they also, not just that though, they also bought the rights to Iron Flame and the other 3 books that are already announced in the series. Yeah.
So once we're in it, we are in it.
That I just hope it's a situation kind of like I I haven't really looked into this too much, but from what I've seen online, I think Hulu dropped the ACOTAR series. I don't think they're doing it anymore.
I've heard rumors of that, but I don't know if
Yeah,
that's for sure.
I've heard rumors too, but I haven't like looked into it enough to be confident in saying
and a
like
lot of
it.
people were commenting to us and like messaging us that
Like
it's
Sarah J. Maas moved back to New York and
they picked it
everything.
up so long ago. There's been no movement. Like it's probably not
Yeah.
going to happen. Which we love. Also, hot take. It seems like hot take. I would have thought it wasn't. I don't want ACOTAR to be an animated film.
I know. I don't either.
When have I ever watched an animated film as an adult and been like, that's moving?
Well, to me, I don't know. The series, the story is too epic, in my opinion, for it to be animated. But I will say, like, let me just caveat this. We don't watch, like, anime. No. Like, neither of us do. I've heard from people that do that anime can be, like, really emotional and actually, like, very... I just can't picture it because we don't watch it. Yeah. I have nothing against anime. I just think I don't want it to be because I don't actively watch it, so I can't imagine it being good.
Yeah. Oh, I can't. Yeah. But I do watch the Studio Ghibli movies. I've gotten into those, and I don't think I've ever cried watching one, but maybe I could get there if they really compelled me.
Maybe, but as of right now, I don't want it to be.
I just don't
animated.
Want it to be anything.
I actually don't want to do a show, and I also don't want Fourth Wing. Here, these are so good as they are, and I feel like I'm just going to take a liberty here, speaking on behalf of the entire book community. Don't leave it alone. Give these to let us have these. Let us keep these in our imagination. Let us. I don't know. I just
can you imagine?
Please, Michael B. Jordan. Please don't. Please don't.
Can you imagine them casting any of these characters who are so perfect in each of our individual minds?
The only person that can be any character is Henry Cavill. He's kind of old, so yes, I know, 100%. But like I don't care if he's in his 40s. He's still the only person that is, in my opinion, good enough to be any character.
And I didn't take note of, like, I've only seen, I haven't even watched Superman, but I've saw him like in the trailers for it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, whatever. But then once I really got into Bookstagram and Book Talk and all that, every girl who's like fangirling over him, it made me watch The Witcher. And I was like, absolutely. He should be Rowan, he should be Rhys, he should be Tamlin, all of them.
He's I would watch, jumping back to ACOTAR, I would watch ACOTAR if he played every character. Like I want him to be Feyre.
Situation.
I want him to be Feyre. If he was everyone, I would watch it.
Yes. Okay. I second that.
I see, and that's the thing. Like
Sarah
The Witcher, The Witcher wasn't even. I mean, if we're talking, because it was based on a video game, so if we're talking like the way the show was written, wasn't even that good. But Henry Cavill was the only good part of it. Like, agreed. And that's why he had like a lot of like disagreements with the production of it and the way it was done. That's why Liam Hemsworth replaced him in whatever season 3 or whatever it was that, and no one was excited about it. Actually, I feel bad for Liam though. Henry his shoes are too big to fill. All right, jumping into this episode today. So today's episode is chapters 25 through 50. So Ellie, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. In the beginning of this book, Nesta and Cassian are back at Windhaven. They go up there because Cassian needs to meet with Iris. But while that's happening, Nesta goes in. Dang it. Why can't I ever... It's spelled with an E.
Okay. So is Ellie. It's not Ellie.
Yeah, but Iris, Ellie. Your name isn't Ellie.
Oh, Melissa. Continue.
All right. He goes to meet with Iris.
Eris.
Why can't I say this?
We're going to have to practice before the podcast next time.
Eris. Okay. Cassian goes to meet with Eris. And she goes to Emery's shop. And while they're having a conversation in there, her cousin, okay, Bellius, right? Her cousin.
Yeah, I think so.
Um,
That one I don't know.
yeah.
Can't be as confident.
Well, also that one, that's just a terrible name.
It's
But
terrible.
he comes in and bullies her because of how terrible this name is, and because of how terrible he just was as a
Mhm.
person in the storyline. Who did you imagine him as? I'll go first.
Go
I
first.
pictured him as Buzz from Home Alone. Like, I have a picture. We'll pull it up here. Like, it's making this face and everything. Like,
That's
it's
so
exactly what I
perfect.
pictured him looking like.
I'm gonna be honest, I didn't really picture, I think any like just outside of the
The
quick
main,
definition and move on. But
yeah.
now that definition fits better. Buzz is a perfect depiction of Bellius.
I mean, I pictured him being like big and lumpy is not the right word, but just like oafy kind of
Yeah,
looking,
big and
and
lumpy.
a jerk, and Buzz was a jerk.
Just like
So
brute
like
and
it's
kind of
just,
like dumb.
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. That's how, and I mean, we know he's not like that dumb, but he's dumb looking to me.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. While Nesta is meeting with Emery, Cassian, we already talked, is consulting with Eris.
Oh, good job.
Um, thank you. But we learn, and in that conversation, we learn that Baron knows nothing about the dead trove, because Briallen doesn't actually trust him that much. Did that
This
little
was
bit of information feel pointless
yes.
to you?
Before you even asked, I was gonna say this was like such a pointless part of
I
the
know. I'm
book.
like, I
We
was
didn't need it.
expecting it to be a bigger deal, or
Yeah.
like, I don't know, maybe, to be fair, we know there's more story coming, so I
Yeah.
don't, maybe this will be relevant in the next book, but because we don't know yet, to me this felt so weird to like add in there. But we
Yeah.
know that Sarah J. Maas doesn't add anything for no reason.
Right.
So it's got to come back at some point. I don't know. It just was like, I mean, I mentioned this in the last episode. As much, this is like my favorite book in the series, and I love Cassian and Nesta so much. I love their relationship. I love all of the like romance that's involved in this book. But the enemy situation in this book was not my favorite. And this just kind of, I
Ooh.
feel like, played into it.
First, two things.
Um
First of all, I picture like all of them being like, come in, come in, come closer, come closer. He doesn't know anything. Second, this reminds me of Marvel in how, like, the beginning Marvel
okay.
movies, they all had like human enemies and it was
Hmm.
intense and it was crazy. But then as time goes on, now I think we all as Marvel fans can agree it's really gotten ridiculous with just like the enemies
Yeah,
they're pulling out of they're like mermaid enemies, alien enemies. Like after Endgame, it
that's
just got
true.
really ridiculous, but it's because humans weren't powerful anymore compared to
Enough.
the
Yeah.
Avengers.
Even
So
though
they had
they're
to
all
create
human.
yeah. So they had to create like these new enemies that were just coming out of the woodworks. So I
Mhm.
feel similarly is you already had Hybern, which is like they've already said so many times. It's the most powerful force. They defeated it. So now what are they going to do? Now they have to
Well,
create
I mean, it was the
new
cauldron. It
enemies.
wasn't him. He was just using it. But I
Sure.
mean,
Yeah.
I get what you're saying. Like,
Yeah.
and with him, even it felt more because he's been holding a grudge. Like 500 years ago, he was involved in the war, and like even before that, he hated everyone in Prithian and like
Hmm.
all that stuff. And so
So it was
the
a
grudge
building
just felt deep.
vendetta. Yes.
Yeah. Whereas Briallen became an old lady immortal like 2 weeks ago. It doesn't
Yeah.
feel like the anger is strong enough to be.
Hmm.
But I also think, I don't know if this was intentional or not. This is my guess on why the enemy building wasn't as great. It's because I think Sarah J. Maas spent so much time writing Nesta as her own enemy in
Hmm.
this. So that, I mean,
That's a good
if
point.
she had spent more time developing, this would have been like a 1,200 page book. It already is like 900 or something, 800 or something.
What's another three,
So
400 pages?
I know. So I don't know if that was why it felt lacking, but I don't know. I just like when she or he brought up that point, I was
Hmm.
like, come again? What? Why do we know that he's an ally if she doesn't trust him? He's not an ally. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean anything. Like um but the conversation, like in that, the way Eris just like puts down Cassian
Mm-hmm.
was annoying too. I mean, for anyone who loves Cassian, which hello, present. So I didn't like that, and I felt so bad for him. Like,
I
just
know.
the way that not everyone, but a lot of people, and the like thought he has of himself from being like a lowborn, like
Yeah.
bastard kid. Like, it was
Which again points to, I know we want an heiress redemption, and I do too. But
yeah.
it points to like he isn't necessarily morally gray, because he does lean more towards just the bad. Like being mean to
I
Cassian
don't
for what?
know. I
What
know,
good
but
reason?
like,
Like Reese always had like a good reason where he had to play the part or whatever. So I just feel like,
but we
what?
don't know his
Why are you
reasonings
mean
yet.
for nothing?
But we don't know
Yeah.
his reasonings yet. I
All right.
mean, I
I'll
just
probably
feel
eat
like
these words in the next book, but
if there's a redemption, and I wouldn't be surprised if there was a redemption, but just not as great as Reese. I don't think there ever could be one as great as the one that Sarah J. Maas
mm-hmm.
wrote about Reese.
Mm-mm.
But I mean, I remember when I was reading the first book, I was like, I hated him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it made everything he did felt so calculated and so pointless. Like the killing, the putting the lower Fae on a spike in the fountain
Mm-hmm.
just because he could. I mean, like,
All right,
again,
you
like,
got a
we know
point.
now that he was playing a part, but even that action specifically didn't really, other than trying to prove to Amarantha that he was
Mm-hmm.
not, like, he was involved in whatever she said, like, still didn't really, he still killed someone for no
Yeah.
reason, technically. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't imagine, like, these conversations are just between two people, so I can't, it's not like a big show, so I can't imagine that there's like a way deeper
Mm-hmm.
point to it. But I don't know, I'm just holding my breath. I would love a redemption story for him. So
Yeah. I would too. But a lot of the hints kind of make me feel like, will he get one, or is he
here's
actually
my
just
true
bad?
here's my hot take. I'd prefer an Eris redemption versus a Tamlin redemption. Tamlin dug his own grave.
No.
Tamlin dug his own
Tamlin.
grave.
Yes, he did. But he no, we've already done this. We can't circle back.
I know. I knew bringing it up was risky, but I did it anyways. All right, moving forward. The frustration from that conversation with Cassian and
Mhm.
Eris leads to the scene infamously known as the dinner table scene. Are you ready to turn red, Ellie?
No. All right, let's just do it.
What are
I can do it.
what are your thoughts?
It was very spicy. Um, it was
It was
nice to see Nesta
shocking.
put in an effort, if I may.
True.
And
I agree.
I like them together, so I did
I
enjoy
know.
that they were building their relationship in one way or another.
I agree.
And that is all I can speak to on this matter. Take it away.
I I mean, when it first started, like, first happened, I was like, when reading it, I was like, ooh, they're in public. Like, or you know what I mean? Like, not in a room with the door closed.
I guess, yeah,
Um,
they talked about like Azriel could walk in any second or something like that, right?
but when he did walk in, like, very, like, they could have easily
Mhm.
been in a much more compromised situation.
Mhm.
I think I started sweating, like, by myself reading this, because I put myself in that situation and I would be so uncomfortable
Uh-huh.
if, if that happened. And oh gosh, Sarah J. Maas just writes so well. She really makes you feel like you are the person's point of view that
Right.
you're reading it. Like, I felt like I had just done that.
Mhm.
Like, and I just got walked in on, and it was uncomfortable. The air was uncomfortable and
The air
thick
was
with
thick.
thick with awkward
Yeah,
afterwards. And it
absolutely.
was thick while I was reading because of how
Yeah.
uncomfortable it made me.
Yes, agreed. 100%. I felt like, ugh,
But I love how
not
good of a
good.
sport Cassian is about it, because he was just like, yeah, whatever.
Well,
Like,
they
all right. So Emery joins after training after Nesta sent Cassian with some spices to her when the next time he went up to Windhaven. The book notes that Gwen is graceful while training, but Emery, they actually say, is awkward. And
Mhm.
I love that she just says awkward and not like some other, I don't know, a more elaborate
Elegant
word
word,
for
yeah.
it. Yeah. Um, when training, mostly because of the fact that her wings are clipped. So if you were in this training situation, do you think you'd be more graceful like Gwen or awkward like Emery?
Well, honestly, when I first read this question, I didn't read the graceful and awkward part. But what I took away from Gwen is she was very timid and shy when she was fighting, and Emery was awkward and but more like brute, I guess. And
Mm.
so immediately I'm like, I'm not really a timid fighter when I
It
fight.
was more in like the movements because Gwen had a little bit of training from her time as an
Mhm.
accolade. So
Mm,
she wasn't coming into it brand new.
yeah.
I mean, it was very limited knowledge,
Mhm.
but I think it was just more in like the way I took it was more in just like she was a lot more fluid with her movements. It looked
Mhm.
like she probably looked like she could have been a dancer while she was doing it or something.
Mhm.
Whereas Emery was probably just like really like I don't clunky isn't the right
Yeah.
word, but you know what I mean? Just like very like sharp brute. The way you said brute is probably a good explanation for like how
Mhm.
she moved. Um, I don't know. Me personally, I'm nothing I do is graceful. Like I'm not a graceful person by any means, but I've always been involved in sports of some kind. So I don't feel like I would look awkward doing it, but I don't think I would be graceful either. I think I would be I guess if I had to pick one, I probably would lean more towards graceful, but
Yeah.
um I don't know cuz from what I'm picturing is like unathletic awkward
Yeah.
is kind of like how I'm picturing it too. And I don't know. I feel like everyone looks dumb when they do something they don't know for the first time, but
Yeah.
I
Well,
feel like I would pick it up easily.
as I mentioned in the last podcast, I cannot dance for the life of me. So, in that aspect, I would think awkward. But I have fought competitively for like
Yeah, I think you'd
15
be
years. So, I
I
lean
forgot
towards
you did
I'd be
that.
more graceful. Uh huh.
You did taekwondo, right?
Hmm.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Yeah, you'd
Yeah.
probably be graceful then. I feel like it's similar-ish. Similar
That's my
enough
sport.
to where you'd be fine.
That's my sport. I've never played a sport with a ball in my entire life, but I have done many like activities like
Outside
cheer,
of
taekwondo, track.
can we just also for a second talk about how the 2 things that Ellie did the most competitively in her life were cheerleading and taekwondo?
They fell
And how
hand in
you
hand. It was
I
excellent
know, but
because
you wouldn't on paper, you wouldn't think that.
no. Also, I was part of pep band, but also cheer. So I've done a lot of
We
opposites in
went
my
to a
life. It's great.
we went to a really small private school where everyone could do it like Zootopia. Anyone can be anything. Like I did theater and cheer and student council and track like all at the same time. Like it
Hmm.
just because they had a very small pool to pick from, so everyone was
Yeah.
involved in a lot.
Yeah. Nobody I knew did not do an extracurricular activity after school. Like, not one of our
Yeah,
friends opted out.
no.
Everybody was doing sports or some kind of
Which
something.
honestly, like looking back is cool because
Yeah.
even if it wasn't like your thing or something you were gonna do forever, at least like I don't know, gave you like a something to do. A lot of people like hate on our high school. I feel like I have decent fond memories of it.
Same here. Hmm.
Not everything was perfect. It's still high school, but I don't
No.
know.
Grant and I always say if we could go back to do high school again, I absolutely would. It was so much fun.
I
I had a great
would
time.
I mean, like I would do a lot of things differently, but I would not be like, "Oh, no, I'm never going back."
Yeah. Oh, the no responsibilities. You didn't have to pay bills. You didn't have to go to
Oh my
work. You just
gosh.
had to go to class.
And
How
just do
easy was
homework.
class? Ugh,
I
and you didn't even have to do homework. You
I
should.
mean, you did, but it wasn't hard. I remember thinking like nothing is going to be worse than having to come home from school and do homework. And if I could tell my
When did you
17-year-old
think
self
that?
something, always. And if I could go back and tell myself, I'd be like, this is as good as it's going to get actually. Like
This is the high
enjoy
of your
it.
life. Be excited. Yeah.
All right, anyways. So Nesta now is just trying to scry again to find where the trove is, but she's having a hard time doing it. She keeps drifting back to the first time she tried, and the cauldron like got her and got
Mhm.
Elaine through her. Um, but so eventually she gives up and falls asleep. But while she's sleeping, she has the most intense nightmare that I feel like Sarah J. Maas has ever written.
Mm.
And Rhys actually has to be the one to like get her out of it because
Mm.
Cassian and Azrael like weren't even powerful enough. Did this like reading this, did this part like freak you out at all?
Give me some little reminders of what the nightmare was
I
about.
just remember being like, they talked about like the room being so dark and like there was like shadows and stuff. I just
Mhm.
remember the way that Sarah J. Maas wrote this. I was like, oh, this is creepy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel like anything I had read up until that point. There had been like really sad things and there had been things that like concerned me, but there wasn't anything where I was like, this is dark.
Mhm.
And in the grand scheme of things, it still isn't, but in context of the book, this felt dark. And I guess it makes sense because, I mean, Nesta's quote unquote powers are essentially pure death.
Yeah.
So
Which okay,
it has to be.
she writes
But
that for a couple of characters, throughout all of her series, that their powers are death incarnate. And I am confusion because what is that like, I know that Nesta doesn't even know. I know nobody really knows, but like I still am upset that I don't know. What does that mean? What can you do? What can you channel? So I think like reading this dream, I was more in the
mm,
mindset of wow, maybe we're going to find out more what her powers are because
that's
she had
true.
all this darkness and blackness and shadows around her, and then they couldn't wake her and things were getting really intense where it was getting dangerous. So,
Yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
true. Honestly, I haven't thought too deeply about it before right now. I think I just took it as face value. It's like
Mhm.
her, she is death reincarnated or whatever. I'm like, all right.
Mhm.
I don't know why I didn't think much about it, but if the last 30 seconds that I have been, if I had to take a stab at it, I would imagine that it's similar to, I mean, Reese's powers. It's just like the intent is not good.
Sure.
Even if, like, Nesta tries for the most part to be a good person, but she's so always tempted to do other things. Like she's tempted by her tongue to say things. She's tempted by like, and I know that has nothing to do with her powers, but I don't know. I think it, I don't know. That's just a wild guess. I haven't thought more on it. Like
Yeah.
there's probably a lot of
I think
flaws in that,
absolutely she
but
tries to be a good person, but she lacks a lot of self-control, much like myself, which is why I relate. So, yes
I feel
and
like
no to
a
that
little bit of like
statement.
a little bit of a social awareness too.
Yeah, yeah,
Again,
for sure.
I'm preaching to the choir when I'm talking about this, but um okay, so then after this, ugh, more
We have to
talk
talk
of
about it. You got
Farrah's
to.
stupid pregnancy. Um we learn that the baby has wings, and the reasoning for the baby having wings killed me. It was because Farrah was in Illyrian form when she
During conception,
conceived.
yeah.
Blech.
I
I'm like, I could have gone my entire life without knowing that. If they just said the baby had wings because Reese had wings, I would have been like, that makes sense.
yeah.
Okay. Like, the fact that that was added in there felt so, I mean, I get it, but I hated it. So, um,
So, the whole thing is, like, the baby could kill her because now
yeah,
in the current state, she's not in
her hips aren't
Illyrian
as wide
form.
as an Illyrian woman. So
Right.
she's not made to give birth to a baby with
And
wings.
so if the baby comes out, the wings will essentially rip her to ribbons. And everyone's like, "She's gonna die. Nothing can be done." You're telling me the
I
last
know.
book,
Her husband is
Cassian's
the most
wings.
powerful fae
Yes.
in
But
all of
okay,
Prithian.
hear me out. The last book, Cassian's wings, were literally not the last book, the two books before, when Hybern like shredded
Yeah.
Cassian's wings when they all got trapped. And they had a healer put him back to and one point his guts were spilling out. Do we not remember that his literal intestines, he was like holding them at one point? Healers were able to save him. A baby has wings and you can't do a basic C-section in this
Yeah, the
book?
fact that they can't do a C-section is confusing. I was gonna say, I mean, I guess in real life there are situations where someone can like have their stomach split open and their guts fall
Yeah.
out, but surgeons are able to repair it.
Yeah.
But if someone has a really big baby, they have to have a C-section. Well, a lot of times, like if babies get stuck or whatever, they have to end up needing to have a C-section. But the fact that they couldn't, like, yeah, like they can fly, they can do all these things, but they can't do a 5-inch incision in the lower
You're kidding
stomach.
me with this. So everybody, this is where like people really started turning against these books, and why a lot of people say like don't even bother with the 5th book, it's not worth it,
I've
is
never heard
because
anyone say that.
I've multiple people even told me don't even like if you really don't care, like don't read those books. And I was like, I'm gonna read them anyways because I'm stubborn, and I don't regret it. These books were amazing, but because of the fact that Reese in this part of the book decides we're not going to tell Feyre that
Oh,
this
I
is going to kill
know.
her. We're just all going to keep quiet and protect her.
And try and figure out something.
So again,
Does he not
Reese,
remember the last time he kept something from her, how that like turned out? She
but does
painted
he not
eyeballs in the
remember
cabin.
how Tamlin like kept everything from
Also
her and
did this. Yeah,
overprotected her?
true.
So everyone's like you completely 180'd Reese's character from being like the number one thing why they loved each other and fell in love
Yeah,
and why she trusted him was because he gave her a choice and always said it's your choice. And in
true.
this, he did not give her a choice and
That's
she
true.
couldn't decide. She was just blissfully living in ignorance. And so everybody throws a
Well, and
riot
then
about
also
this because it's
her
ridiculous.
reaction to that. I mean, don't get me wrong, she's mad at him, but like she's mad for like a day and
Yeah.
then gets over it. That's not
Yeah.
Feyre.
Hmm.
Like that's why I hated the pregnancy trope, because both of their characters just stopped being who they were.
Which
They
again, I told you, Sarah J. Maas wrote them into a corner so they couldn't have flaws
yes.
because, but here's my hot take again. If she wrote them how they actually are in this book, it would have been too close to the Twilight story where Bella was like, no, I'm going to give birth to this baby. And Edward was like, I hate this for you. I'm going to
Oh,
kill myself because I'm so depressed that you're going to essentially sacrifice your life for a
that's
kid that, and I
true.
think it would have been too close. So she had to give them new personalities to get away with a pregnancy
I
trope.
almost wish that she had just done that, because the first book is really similar to Beauty and the Beast anyways. It's not like we're not pulling from things that have already been
One's a
done.
classic story and one's a cult
A cult
classic.
classic.
Yeah. I'd
Hey,
be okay with it.
I
Another little
loved that cult
Renesmee
classic
story.
growing up.
I know.
Except if they had named the baby Renesmee, I would have thrown up. That is my least favorite thing of
I
the
know.
entire
I
Twilight
don't
series.
know if you remember this, Melissa, but we saw that movie together for the first time in theaters. And
I
I
don't remember
remembered that
that.
because Grant asked me, "Hey," because we watched it the other day. He goes, "When was the last time? Like, when's the first time you saw this?" And I was like, "I was with Melissa and my mom in theaters." And I remember, and you're gonna love
I
this. The
do.
first time they said we're naming her Renesmee, you out loud in the theater were like, "Renesmee." You're
Because
like,
let
that's
me,
the dumbest name I've ever heard.
I had just started reading the book, so I hadn't read that book yet. So,
Hmm.
and I didn't know that was gonna be her name, the dumbest name ever. But I'm not surprised. I feel like I say that still anytime I watch the movie.
Hmm.
I'm always surprised at, like, especially just how dumb Kristen Stewart looks saying it. No offense to Kristen
Renesmee.
Stewart, but she's like, "Well, my mom's name is Renee and your mom's Esme, and so we did Renesmee." I'm like waiting for her to laugh. Like, it's so dumb. I don't whatever. Yes, you're right. I did that. I didn't like that. And then I also didn't like Cassian points out in the book, he says learning of Feyre's pregnancy might make Tamlin crumble again, with a new war possible, like a possibility, and Briallen up to her bullshit. We need a strong ally. We need the Spring Court's forces. That I was like, I mean, it makes sense, like I get it, but
Hmm.
I'm like, this what the Spring Court is in shambles. They're
Yeah.
not really going to be an ally. They haven't
No.
gotten themselves back together yet.
Uh huh.
So I'm like, if even if Tamlin freaks out, I feel like he's a blip on the radar at this point. Like,
Yeah. I
I
think
don't know.
it's just
It's just all of it.
the overwhelming, like, basically Prithian is kind of in pieces right now because we just fought this huge war. We need everybody to just chill for a second. And so all these little factors might add up into something big eventually. So I kind of
Mhm.
understood from that point of view. But yes, I agree
The one
that
thing I
Tamlin's
did,
court is not something to worry about.
yeah, the one thing I did like about I feel like the only good thing that came out of bringing this up
Hmm.
was that we saw, even though it wasn't like public and it wasn't directly to Feyre, we saw Nesta start to like care about her. And
Hmm.
so she's like, well, I'll try again. Like, she's like, I have to do something, and the only thing I can do is figure out where the trove is. So then she tries again and then figures out where the mask is, and in the bog of Urid. I said Urid in my head.
I said Urid. Mm-hmm.
Because it's OO. It's like, ooh,
yeah.
I'm just kidding. Anyways, the bog of Urid. So now they go there. So Cassian, Nesta, and Azrael all go to the bog. And Az is attacked almost immediately. There's lots of clouds. They can't really see what's happening. So Cassian is like, puts Nesta in the top of a tree. He's like, wait here. I'm going to go help figure out what's going on, and then I will come back for you. In true Nesta and Melissa fashion, she waited all of 30 minutes before she's like, nope, something's wrong. I gotta go I gotta go do something.
Is so strong. Yep.
So she gets out of the tree. Do you think you would have waited longer, or do you think you would have
100%
exactly
I would have waited? Well, but I have something to say, because this reminds me of the question we asked when L.A.M.E was happening originally, and Feyre heard the drums, and we asked each other, would you stay? Yeah, as a human, I would stay. But Nesta is super powerful. She can't control it, but she doesn't know that yet. But she
doesn't. But she's too scared to even practice user powers, so she doesn't even know what to do.
If you were like, your mate was, which I feel like is worse than my life, is if my mate's life was in danger, you could probably something.
I mean, 100% agreed, but we don't know at this point if they're mates. Like, they're like barely starting to like be interested romantically.
That's true.
I mean,
I just mean more like, if you're like, she's obviously into him. If your significant other was in danger, it's more important than my own life, I guess.
I think the difference for me with this and with the L.A.M.E thing is Feyre was sitting in her room, like seeing what was happening. She could hear the music, like all that stuff, and it was like calling to her. It was Nesta didn't know anything. She wasn't like,
but that's
her
more
only
compelling
indication
for me.
Well, but her only indication that something was wrong is that it had been 30 minutes.
But that's,
I mean, I don't know.
Well, you're in a dark place. She knew what the dangers were in the bog. She knew what the dangers were, that it was uncharted territory. The monsters there were more intense than any monsters they've seen. They're gone for 30 minutes.
But they don't know. They haven't seen any monsters.
My anxiety would be too strong. I would get out of the tree. That's my final answer.
I also have a lot of anxiety, and I think I would be freaking out, but I feel like it would have been, well, it's very true to her character to not listen to anything, but I feel like in her situation, if I were her, even though I have a lot of anxiety, like, one, I know I have some kind of power, but I have absolutely no idea how to use it. Two, even 2 minutes feels like forever when you're like freaking out, but like in the grand scheme of things, it hadn't been that long. And three, I don't know what is down there. I'm also scared to climb trees, just like in general. The way I interpreted this is she is really high. I feel like I would be scared of what was happening and want to help Cassian, but I'd also be just equally as scared to get down from the tree. So I think I might stay there a little bit longer before getting out. I would get out, but not at 30 minutes.
We'll chalk it up to cultural differences, this one.
Yeah, all right. But anyway, she does. She gets down, and then the Kelpie shows up, drags her.
Okay, that name for like such a vicious flesh-eating monster, a Kelpie. It reminds me of kelp chips from SpongeBob. Yeah.
Yes, 100%. It reminded me of, what was the like drink, that one episode where everyone's obsessed with the kelp like smoothies or whatever.
Oh, I don't know.
Do you remember?
I know what you're talking about.
They were actually called, but I pictured like a green lizard monster sipping one of the, like in the shadows, like has like on like one of those kelp drinks
coming out of the shadows.
That's exactly, just because of the name Kelpie, it's immediately SpongeBob.
It's too cute for such an evil fiend.
It is. But I had a hard time picturing it being probably as gross as it was because of that, but that feels like a Melissa problem, not a Sarah J. Maas problem.
I'll try to find it and post it. An artist drew a picture of Nesta holding the Kelpie's head in her hands. We'll get to that
Ooh.
point within the story, but I was like, oh, that's much scarier than I was picturing. So it puts some
That
perspective. It was
is
really good.
that's not a lizard monster from the same
Mm-mm.
animation as SpongeBob. But yeah, so anyways, it drags her down. She's like about to die, but then decides like not to. I like this point was the first time where she was like things were happening to her and she didn't just kind of like she
Let it
fought back.
happen.
Like she
Right.
didn't. Yeah, I mean she kind of fought back before, but this was when she it was just her like the only thing, and she's like nope. I'm not gonna be able to quote it exactly, but I want to say it's something along the lines of like, but I could stop it. Like I
Mm-hmm.
could do something about it. And then she gets the mask, puts it on, raises an army of the dead from like
Well,
everyone that else that the Kelpie had
yes.
killed.
I think that we
And
need
then
to mention though that there was a bright object at the bottom of the
that's
bog,
true.
and she realized that, oh, that's the mask. That's why we were here. So then she
Yeah,
swam towards it, put it on. It
true.
wasn't just in her hands magically.
You're right. I mean, I'm assuming that anyone listening to this has already read the book, but
Yeah, what are you
you're right,
doing if
maybe
you
not.
haven't read the book yet?
Read the books, guys. Um, but yeah, anyways, and then she does away with the Kelpie. I like that Cassian at this point, they realize she's not in the tree. They came back for her.
Mhm.
And she just emerges from the water with the mask on, holding the head and the army of I mean, I picture them as
But
skeletons kind of like
this is
coming up.
such a badass moment.
Oh, I
The
know.
imagery is incredible. Again, that artist drew all of
Absolutely.
this, and I was like, "Whoo, that's good." I liked it a
Oh, I
lot.
know. I mean, I vividly pictured all of this in my head, and it
Mhm.
was other than the Kelpie looking a little sus and like being like SpongeBob esque,
Uh-huh.
everything else was very detailed and very scary in
Mhm.
my mind.
Mhm.
um, I feel like we also need to point out the fact that we didn't mention this in the last episode, but um, Azrael was shot down by a group of like 12 Autumn Court soldiers that had gone missing, which
Mhm.
I also when they went missing, I'm like, what? You lost 12 adults?
I
Like,
know. Where did they
I'm
go?
what happened? Which I
Uh-huh.
get it, like no one else knew, and we now know like they figured out that they were like in a train. They killed all of them except for two of them. They had the two to go back to interrogate them, but like, and then they got mad at Eris for a second because they're like, oh, he did this, like he knew these are the soldiers. Um, but I just was like, these are like again so powerful Illyrian warriors, magical high fae, like high lords and stuff, and you can't find 12 people. I'm just there's some things that are just a little inconsistent for me, and that is one of
Yeah.
them.
Well, and again, is why I think a lot of people didn't like this book is because it was so inconsistent with the rest of the trilogy
Well,
and then the novella.
that's not just with this one. I feel like in every book there's things where I'm like, you're telling me you can like
Yeah.
reforge the cauldron, but you couldn't find where the king's army was without reaching into the cauldron. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's
Uh-huh.
there's things in all of the books where I'm
Totally.
like, I accept them. I
Yeah.
didn't write these books and I couldn't write them as well, but I'm like, what? Okay,
Yeah.
let's just go with it, I guess. um,
I feel like I do that actually a lot more than I'm remembering right now, but now I'm
I
gonna
agree.
start putting little notes next to them so I can bring them up because there's a lot of times I'm like,
Yeah.
"Okay," and just move on.
I agree. All right, so let's also move on to the next question. And let's talk about the enchanted weapons that Nesta accidentally forged at the
Mhm.
blacksmith with Cassian. But first, before that happened, when he took her to the blacksmith to make these weapons, this was like when I was giddy reading
Yeah.
this. I'm like, this is like a cutie Hallmark date. Like, what a sweet gesture to get her
Yeah.
out of the house and do something. But I'm like, it also kind of like pertains to her training a little bit.
Yeah.
Did you also feel like that reading
I
it?
did. I thought, well, me
Ugh.
as the creative, I was like, I would love to do something like this.
Oh my
And
gosh, I
I've
know.
seen where people have gone to like go weld their own wedding bands together. Like
Mm.
it's a very cute activity. So imagine being
I
able to
don't think
weld
I'd be
your
very
own
good at
weapons.
it. Not that it's any easier, but I feel like I'm a little bit more of a glass blowing type of gal versus like
What?
forging metal. Well, I just know like it takes a lot of, and again, I'm not saying glass blowing doesn't, but like it takes a lot of patience and skill to hammer something to point of it being smooth. Like if I
You're
made it, it would be
telling
really
me
like
with zero experience or knowledge on both subjects that you know
yes,
without a shadow of a doubt you would be better at blowing glass than welding metal. That's what you're
that's
saying into the
absolutely what
mic
I'm
right
telling
now?
you. That's what I'm saying. You
Okay.
know why? Here's why. Here's
Okay.
my hypothesis, my scientific evidence. I was real good at, you remember those little things you'd get as a kid
Shrinky
where you'd put
dinks?
like
Are you
what?
about to say shrinky dinks?
I don't know if that's what it's called. I don't think so. You'd put like a little bit of some kind of bubble putty on the end of a straw and you'd
Oh, yeah, yeah,
it'd
yeah.
blow into it and it'd turn into like this. I was so good at
I
making
used
things.
to okay, here's how I know I'd be a better welder than glassblower. I used to inhale that crap all the time. Yes, and
Ellie,
I'd
the
be like,
straw was so long and narrow. How you'd have to suck
I
in
was a
really
dumb
hard.
kid. I don't know. I was just breathing through the straw thinking. And so I used to hate doing that because I was like, it tastes bad. And my
It
mom's like,
did, that
what do you
stuff
mean it
smelled like it
tastes
tasted
bad?
toxic.
It sure I'm probably gonna die early now that I think of it. I'm pretty sure I swallowed a lot of that. So
Yeah, a
no
lot
glass
of
blowing
forever
for me,
chemicals
thank
in
you.
those. Even though you don't actually blow glass, like glass blowing, that's my why I feel like I'd be better at it. Anyways, um, so then the blacksmith shows up later, with the
Mhm.
weapons and says that Nesta cursed them, and they figure out that they're like unintentionally fashioned
For me, that was such a
magical weaponry.
twist because I really
Yeah,
didn't think anything other than like, "Oh, that's a cute bonding thing they did together." I didn't think anything of that, so when the guy comes back and was like, "I can't have these. They're possessed." I was like,
what are you
"Wow."
talking? I know. I can't decide. I didn't think anything of it in the moment, but now that I've had time to like digest it and everything, I still think I like it. Was definitely a twist. Like I didn't see it coming,
Mhm.
and I do think I liked it, but it felt a little bit like maybe a little bit of a cop out or something.
Mm.
It made me nervous when that happened. It made me nervous that they weren't going to find all of the trove. And I'm like, Sarah J.
Okay.
Maas is writing something in for a. They're gonna pull this out of their butts at the end and like use one of these to kill Brie Allen or something. Like I'm like, I don't
Sure.
know how this is gonna end up happening, but that's kind of where I was at.
Uh-huh.
But I agree. I did not. I thought it was just like this is a cute little date, and that was fun. And
Mhm.
Nesta came into her own a little bit more, and now are seeing her heal. Like I didn't. I
Yeah.
figured that was all that it was. I didn't see that coming back at all. Agree
Yeah.
either.
Hmm.
Um. So, Amrin wanted Reese to use these weapons
Mhm.
to become the king of Prithian, but he rejects that idea. Did
Oh,
you
I
want him
didn't realize
to do
this
that?
was so close. I think it's going to be an inevitable thing, which makes me so stressed. Like, genuinely, this chapter, I think about it a lot. It stresses me out so much because Tarquin, we like Tarquin. We don't really care
We
for
do.
Tamlin. We definitely don't like Baron. Um, who's the High Lord of Day and all, but we like the rest of
Oh,
them.
hell
So,
yeah, we
but
like them all.
you essentially are kind of like turning against them to be like, I'm going to unite all of this under guess who? You're looking right at it. A Lin
Me.
Manual, if I've ever heard it again. But
You're gonna become Michael B. Jordan of these movies.
yeah, I'm gonna say something and it's not going to ruin anything for anybody of Throne of Glass or ACOTAR or anything. But there's a common theme where, and it gets repeated a lot, these exact words,
Mm,
we want a better world. A better world, a better world. It's I haven't read
yeah,
Crescent City yet, but I've to my understanding, they say that a lot there. A
yeah.
lot of me wonders if somehow, some way, she's gonna freaking back to Marvel Avengers this, push all of these stories together to where they create a world, a better world where Reese is kind of the ruler of it. Now that's my
Ellie,
fan theory.
I like. Oh my gosh, I got goosebumps.
I'm telling you, I think about this a
That would be
lot.
so cool.
Mhm.
Oh my word.
Mhm. I'm gonna need you to read Throne of Glass immediately. There's so much I have to talk to you
I
about and so
know.
much I need to talk to the podcast about.
I will, I promise. It's just a huge commitment
I
that
know. You could do it so fast,
I
though. You're a
want
fast
so
reader.
bad. I know I'm a fast reader, but that means, especially with there being 8 of them, like,
Mhm.
I sacrifice sleep when I'm really into something, and that means I'm not
Mhm.
gonna sleep for a long time
I
if I
think that's worth
start
it.
these
I
books.
think you need to take one
I
for the team.
I know. I will. I promise I'll read them soon. Because I want to so badly. I want Sarah J. Maas to just hurt me emotionally all over again.
Oh, she
But
will. Oh,
I
she
know.
will.
I know. um. Anyways, I did not want when they first brought that up. I was like, ooh. I see. I didn't think at all about the. Well, partially because I haven't read the other series, but also because I don't think I would have thought about it.
Mhm.
I didn't think the direction you were going in, like bigger scale, multiple universes are kind of like involved and connected.
Mhm.
Um, but I didn't want him to do that because I don't know, it didn't feel like I think he would make a wonderful king. I think he would lead well,
Mhm.
but for the same reasons that Reese didn't want to, like it'd be so easy for one person to become corrupt versus like all of the high lords and everything.
Yeah.
And I mean, he just has so much self-awareness to even realize, like, even though he probably wouldn't become like that, who's to say for the next, like, if you're setting a precedence at that point, like, then
It
there's gonna be
is
another king. And I
inevitable.
don't know.
I think it's gonna be
Yeah.
inevitable because of how she said, like, these weapons have not reemerged for so many years, and
Mm,
at that point, they were all under
yeah.
this person, and, like, all these patterns are realigning for you. I can't stand it. She writes so
Yeah,
well. There's so
I
much I wanna
know.
tell you about Throne
She's
of Glass to
so good
prove
at,
my
like,
points.
the
Yeah.
forethought of, like, "I'm gonna write about this now, but it's not gonna happen for another 3 books." I am
It
not that
kills
patient.
me. How can you do this to me?
I
Okay,
know, I know.
let's move on before I
Um,
cry a little bit.
alright, so then, one of my favorite scenes in this book, is when Nesta, Cassian, and Eris all go meet in the spring court,
Mhm.
and Nesta puts him in his place when
Mhm.
he's being a jerk to Cassian. And then the same when Tamlin shows up. What were you feeling when you read that part?
Oh, I loved it when she was a jerk to Tamlin and just ripped
Oh
him
my god.
apart. I
And
loved
but
it.
like it felt so effortless. Like that's
Mhm.
what I loved about it. I was like, "Oh, shut up, you crybaby." Like I mean, I know she didn't say that, but it just was like, ooh. Reading it, I was like, that the perfect timing for your personality to come
Mhm.
out.
Yeah.
it it was a breath of fresh air because
Yeah.
both of them needed that to happen.
For sure. Wasn't she a little bit gentle with Tamlin too, though? Like in the end, just kind of like
I think,
had
truthfully, I
some
don't
mercy on
remember
him.
exactly. I think like it was like, this is pathetic. Like, why would I kick someone while they're down? Not so much like
I know she
had
said,
empathy or anything.
oh, I know she brought back like brought back up the cauldron and what he did to them. And that was intense because it
That's
was the
true.
first time we saw her confront the person who did them the most
Yeah,
dirty. So
exactly.
that was nice. I liked that.
That's true. Oh, I
Mhm.
just love Nesta.
I know.
I love her so much. I don't care if anyone disagrees. That's like, ugh. All right.
Mhm.
So then Cassian tells the rest of the inner circle about Nessa's plan to revive the Valkyrie ways, and Elaine comments on how that's very fitting since she used to turn every high society ball that they went to into a battlefield with her dancing.
Mhm.
What was the first thing that came to your mind when you were reading this? I'll
I
go
don't
first
Okay,
because
go ahead.
mine it was, I know this was probably supposed really like an epic, like, oh yeah, she's such a great dancer. She like whatever, I don't know. The first thing I thought of was the scene in Get Smart when Steve Carell was dancing with the heavy lady in the
Oh,
when
yeah,
they were in
yeah, yeah.
France or whatever, and he was pretending to be like the mentally challenged servant for Anne
Uh-huh.
Hathaway.
Yeah.
Like just picturing them like
That movie's so
this
funny.
kind of like walking, oh my gosh. And so I had a hard time taking Nesta's dancing seriously, truly, for
Yeah.
the rest of the book because of who I am and how that was my initial thought.
I remember this being really stupid to me because dance has never compelled me to have any emotions at all other than embarrassment. So I was like singing, music, all that could compel someone to tears. I've seen it myself, had those emotions myself. But dancing, when they're like, she will rule the ball once she starts swaying her
Yeah.
little hips. I'm like, okay, again, okay,
See,
but we'll move on.
I remember feeling, I don't know, it wasn't as dumb to me. I think I never danced like competitively, but like I could see in the same way, like you said, like it's a form of art. So I could
Hmm.
see, I don't personally understand like art like
Hmm.
painting and stuff. Like I don't understand how someone could look at a painting and be moved to tears and stuff, but that's because I have zero talent
Yeah.
and zero ability. So I don't understand
Well, I'm not gonna
how
say
someone
yeah to
could
that.
turn.
Yeah, you do.
Well, no, 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 no. I really don't. Like high, like really classic art.
Hmm.
I don't understand how that like portrays any emotion to, because
Agreed. Unless I knew a backstory, and then it's like, oh, that's why you painted this.
true.
Okay, I might
But like
cry.
just to look at something and
A
be like,
100%
wow,
agreed. Yeah.
I see anger and I see heartbreak. I'm like, I see blue. Like
Yeah.
I don't like it's
Yeah.
not the same for me. So
Uh-huh.
in this, because just because I don't understand it, I could see how it could be powerful,
Yeah.
but I felt like it was really dramatic talking about how she turned every like ball into some kind of thing. You know, like
Hmm.
I'm like, that feels excessive because
Yeah.
it
Well, but everybody hyped
is
it up.
just
Like all
dance.
her sisters were like, "Oh, when she dances, she captivates the room," and everybody like is moved to tears. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, okay,
I mean, I could totally see someone being that good at dancing where everyone is like captivated by them, but the moving to tears part
it's the
lost me too,
emotion.
cuz
Yeah.
yeah. And or just how she could like completely like, I don't know. I don't want to get too into it because I know it comes up later. But yeah, I agree. And I did think it was sweet though, like Cassian learning that about her though. He was trying to
Hmm.
think of like different ways to involve music then in their training and stuff. And I'm just like,
Hmm.
what a guy. um, but then so then the next day, Cassian accidentally tells Nesta, this is okay, just from here on out, the rest of the podcast, this is my favorite part of this book.
Okay.
This section that we're about to jump into. Cassian accidentally tells Nesta about um the magical weapons that she made
Hmm.
and how the inner circle voted against, specifically Reese and Amarin voted against telling her.
Yeah.
And she loses it. She is
Yeah.
livid, so livid to the point where she finally climbs down all 10,000 steps,
Woo woo.
specifically just to go to her house and
Yeah.
lay into her because she thought they were friends. So she felt really betrayed.
Hmm.
Um, do you think something like that would be moving enough for you to finally climb
Let
down
me
those?
say this
Because
clearly into the mic. 100%. I am nothing if
honestly,
not rageful.
vengeful. Um, yeah, I think it would for me too. Like
Hmm.
feeling betrayed by someone I thought was a close friend, that cuts so deep.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and to
and
find out they're
we
treating you
haven't.
like a kid, voting against telling you,
I
not even
know,
voting against
I know.
letting you use them, voting against letting
Well,
you know it
exactly.
all. What, are you just not an
Well,
equal part
and
of
I think,
anything?
well, she doesn't feel like an equal part. That's like a
Mhm.
common theme throughout the
But
book,
how they
and
just hammer
also,
that in, again, it's like, it's so
yeah.
exclusive, it makes me me being Nesta, it makes me so mad.
Oh, I know,
Mhm.
100%. I agree completely, and I think I would absolutely do it. I mean, we haven't touched on it, but like throughout this book, she's been consistently getting further and further down the stairs, but hasn't obviously been able to like get out yet. I just like that, not just the situation, but when she is finally able to get out, her whole goal with getting out originally was freedom to go and do whatever she wanted to do.
Mhm.
But when she finally is able to get down there, she chooses to go berate someone verbally instead of drinking or like
Yeah.
whatever the other motives that she had originally.
Yeah.
um, but then Feyre shows up at Amren's house to referee the situation.
Mhm.
And oh, this part breaks my heart. Vindictively, Nesta brings up the fact that she's like, well, you don't think they're keeping secrets from you too, and tells her about her pregnancy and how
And how
it's
dangerous
literally
it
gonna
is.
kill her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and Reese is furious when he finds out because I mean, Feyre sends something down the bond,
Mhm.
and he tells Cassian to take her out of the city, otherwise he's gonna kill her. I just the
Side note, real quick.
immediate
Um, I never considered that Reese would talk to anybody else, like, mentally, and so the fact that he talks to Cassian sometimes, like, "Hey,
he
what are you
talks
doing
to
tonight?"
Azriel and Cassian
Yeah, but, like, from
because like that's
Cassian's
how he
point of
calls
view,
them.
when Reese speaks like, we
True.
know that he, sent out the message from under the mountain from the very beginning, but just, like,
Yeah.
from Cassian's point of view in the beginning of this book when he was, like, laying in bed and Reese is like, "Hey, can't sleep," and they started talking through, like, a mental bond, I was like, "Aw."
I know.
Yeah,
I love the Bat Boys.
I know.
I love
Back to
all of
this,
them.
though.
No, back to this. I do you remember how you felt, Lo, like reading this, like after he's like, get her out, like
I
she's gonna die if you
personally
don't.
felt as icky as if I were the one to have done it because I have found
Yes,
myself in those situations where I vindictively just say things because I'm already mad, I'm already in the hole, and then I can't stop myself.
yes.
I've turned red, my whole vision goes black, and I just like say horrible things. So, and then immediately after you have that like instant
Immediate
regret
regret.
of like, oh
Yeah,
crap. And then but now you have to live with the consequences of what you did. So her
I
brother-in-law to be
know.
like, "Get out of the city, get as far away so I don't kill you." Oh, I'd feel a little guilty.
I mean, honestly, the way she writes, like the look on Favor's face, that would make me feel guiltier than Reese wanting to kill me. Like
Yeah.
I had that coming. That is a given.
Mhm.
I know how protective he is of her, and I know how much he didn't want her to know about this because he was trying to find a solution. But the just knowing it, and it was like she knew what she did it on purpose. She knew what she was
Mhm.
doing in the same way that like you said, I have done that. This is the one part of maturity that I'm still waiting on. Like
Yeah.
I I do that too. Like I say things before I think all the time, and like
Mhm.
especially when I'm angry, which is the worst time to speak without thinking. And I just not to the same extent, but I've done stuff like this before too. So that immediate regret and like just turmoil she felt internally, I related so much to it, and I felt it all over again
Mhm.
reading this. Ugh. Um oh, and then so then Cassian was like, we're getting the get out of here. Azrael has stuff packed for them immediately, and then they
Mhm.
go to the mountains. The
Yeah.
hiking in the mountains.
They just
Truly
walk
like
and walk.
my favorite part of this
Mhm.
entire book is this right here. Ugh, I don't know. There's so many
I
favorite
do
parts.
like
This is
this part a
definitely one of
lot.
them, though.
Yeah.
I loved how angry Cassian was with her because he just wasn't. He was able to excuse everything up
Mhm.
until this point, but this was like, there's no excuse for it. It was purely spiteful, vengeful. She was trying to hurt Feyre
Mhm.
and it was just like he's made excuses and everything for her so many times, but he just
Mhm.
can't anymore. And she hurt him too because then I mean, oh no, she was never mind. She was there when they found out. But like, I don't know. It was a bad look on him. It was a bad look on her, everything. And so I
Yeah.
love that he was gentle but like angry still with
Yeah,
her.
but he's still stuck
Um
with her, and they walked for days, and she ends up passing out at one point from dehydration because she was
well,
holding
she
that
won't
super
ask for
heavy
help.
backpack. Yeah, it was like a form of self-punishment. Because didn't he tell her, like, "You can take the backpack off or I'll carry it," or something?
Yeah.
And she was like,
Oh yeah, it
"No,
was
I'll keep
absolutely
going."
self-punishment.
Mhm,
Yeah, and like she wouldn't eat because she didn't and I don't know, I just think the inner turmoil she was feeling and that Sergio Moss so eloquently wrote in this part. It's just I identified with it so much. Like
mhm.
she was punishing herself more than anyone else could because she agreed. She's like, I'm trash and this is
Yeah,
what I deserve.
yeah.
And I'm just I cried the whole time reading this part. I just not like sobbing, but I was definitely crying the entire
Really?
mountain.
It moved you that much?
Yes. Oh my
I don't think I
so
cried,
much.
but
I just think Sarah J. Maas did such a good job at putting into words the inner thoughts and like
yeah.
self-hatred that Nesta had for herself that it was like parts about me that I didn't even I feel like she taught me about myself
Mm,
reading this.
mhm.
Like just because I identify so much with Nesta, like I was like, oh my word,
I was
reading it.
very interested though to read about like this was Nesta's rock bottom, because after this we
Yeah.
kind of see things start looking better for her.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting to be like, okay, so this because you always feel like, oh, that's got to be your rock bottom. That is not a good look
I
for
know.
you.
But like
That's rough. But this was
but now
it.
you know
Yeah.
this was
Yeah.
like very obviously her rock bottom.
Hmm. Yeah.
And
I did like this part a lot because I feel like this
I
was
know.
truly the low, and she finally it openly admits, like, I feel like once you start talking about it, then things start
Exactly.
getting
This is
better.
the first, you're right. She's finally talking with Cassian about like how she's
Hmm.
really feeling. Like she says like she doesn't care if she lives or dies. She actually even says specifically, I can't undo it. I can't fix it. I can't fix that he's dead. I
Hmm.
can't fix what I said to Feyre. I can't fix any of the horrible things I've done. I can't fix me. Oh,
Yeah.
like
Sad.
that. Oh my gosh. Because
It's
I
sad,
just
but
love
I've
that
been
she's
there.
still
I
bringing
get
up her
it.
dad.
Hmm.
I know. I know. Um, but then Cassian's like, "Oh, you don't need to fix anything. You just need to forgive yourself to move forward." Which that was like a little bit of a, a little bit of a. I don't. You can't really like have a good answer to what
Yeah.
Nesta said, but his answer felt a little bit like, "Have you seen all of those reels?" But like wife like saying to her husband, "I'm so stressed and anxious," and husband's like, "Well, don't feel stressed." And it's like, "Oh
Oh,
yeah,
you
that's
did
it."
it.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
answer felt a little bit like that to me, but
Yeah.
I mean, what could he really say? Like in the grand scheme of things, like she's like you
Right.
said, hitting her rock bottom. She's breaking into pieces right in front of him. Like
Hmm.
I think it would have even been better if he didn't say anything and just like held her or something.
Yeah.
But
Oh well.
tomato, tomato. I still liked his reaction.
At his best. It's all good.
Yeah, and that's where we're gonna stop for today.
On that low
We're gonna
note,
pick
goodbye,
up.
everyone.
I know. Yeah. Have a good week. No, we're gonna pick up on chapter 51 and then finish the book next episode. And I am so sad to be done talking about these books. I'm not gonna lie.
I
Like,
know.
I'm excited to move on. We're gonna start diving into Caraval next.
Ooh, I'm
If you
excited for
haven't,
that.
yeah, if you haven't already read it, start reading it now. It's a really, really cool. There's 3 books in the series. They're a lot smaller than these ones, so it'll
Yeah.
be a much quicker read.
What
Um,
I love though
and I'm
is
like,
like each one of those books is vastly different than the one before. There's so
mm,
many similar, like they have to be similar. They use the same characters and same uh like settings sometimes, but
yeah.
there's such different stories.
Well, and this is gonna be fun talking about these books. I mean, I know we still have one more in the ACOTAR series, but it's gonna be fun talking about these books because Ellie's read these books a while ago, and I'm gonna
Mhm.
be reading them like fresh. So our opinion, it'll be interesting to hear like the different takes. Like you've
Yeah.
had time to think about it, and I will have, but it'll be fresh in my mind. So I'll be
Hmm.
curious to see like how that changes if either of us change opinions
Hmm.
at all based on like that
Yeah.
once we start talking about it.
It's gonna be great.
I know. All right. Well, have a great week, everyone. Like, subscribe, follow us on Instagram, tell all your friends, get them to read these books. Honestly, like the book community is my favorite community
I
because
know.
it's so genuine and it's
And
so like I don't
talk to us about
yes,
what books you're reading. I put that prompt up on Instagram and had so many good conversations with
I
our
know.
little book community about what they're reading and what I personally am going to add to my TBR. And just
Mm,
some of these books sound so good, and they're ones I've never heard of. So you got
yeah.
to have
We
book
have
friends.
a we have like books and everything planned. I want to say okay, so what? It's November right now. We have like stuff planned through I think like the beginning of February at least.
Hmm.
But I think it'd be fun maybe if we when we get a little bit closer to like put feelers out and see like what books you want us to do. And it'll be
Hmm.
really especially like if you've already read them and we haven't. Again, the hot takes like it'll
Yeah.
be fresh in our minds, but maybe not in yours. And as our community like grows and everything, we want to like start I've said this before. I don't even this isn't like what we do. I don't know. We'll have to like figure it out as we go, but like I want to somehow create like an online community. Like so we can all like actually
What
interact.
were those called back
It's
in
so
the
hard to make
day?
adult friends. Like this is like such a good way to do it even though it's online.
I know. I love it. I've loved it so
Yeah.
far. I think I'm going to continue loving it. It's great.
Yep. Awesome. Well, yeah, like, subscribe, YouTube, Instagram, and what else? Oh, listen to Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Leave us a review if you've been enjoying this. That helps us a lot. And yeah, we will see you next week for part 3 of A Court of Silver Flames.
The final part. Are we gonna cry? I might cry.
We're gonna cry.
All right.
All right. Bye, everyone.